A successful trap by Ukrainian special forces, BCU GUR operatives infiltrated the tundra of Spit and set up a minefield, which ended up catching a Vityaz multi-purpose tractor. The Russians used it to transport personnel and weapons to enemy positions. A logistics hub belonging to one of the Russian brigades in the Kursk region was also not left untouched. Special Operations Forces struck a storage base for materiel, ammunition depots, as well as a concealed location where the occupiers kept weapons and military equipment. Meanwhile, the situation remains difficult in the Kupiansk direction.
The center of Kupiansk. This is Russia. Such a peaceful population in the country.
It is reported that Russian troops are using pipes to move personnel into Kupiansk.
We have a new briefing. They told us how to behave in the pipe, what to do. They gave us rations, a pyramid, and 1.5 liters of water each. And they led us to the pipe one by one. A cart is tied to it. But
Ukrainian forces are successfully blowing up and damaging the pipes as well as capturing Russians.
But what exactly is the core essence of this particular situation?
What is the situation with the occupiers' advance in the Kupiansk direction?
Their primary objective is Kupyansk Zaliznychny, a strategically important location situated directly to the south of the main city of Kupiansk. Right now, from the specific areas of intense fighting where the Russian forces have recently appeared, it's still a considerable distance of approximately 7 to 8 kilometers to reach the crucial railway line, which is in fact quite a significant distance to cover.
Also, over the past day, specifically on September 18th, there were 172 recorded combat engagements, 61 of which were in the Pokrovsk direction.
Regardless of how the campaign is replanned there, or if a new strategic offensive operation is launched, the main focus will remain on the eastern direction, and most likely the main axis of attack will stay the same. That is the capture of Kupiansk. And, well,
as for the Pokrovsk direction, what are the Russians trying to achieve there?
depending on what happens north of the Pokrovsk-Ambrosivka urban agglomeration, that's how they will act. If they manage to encircle Pokrovsk from the north, it will create a pocket, and then they will try to squeeze it with a blockade, attempting to surround our forces. If they don't succeed, they will advance from the front, that is from the southern sector of Sinelnikovo.
According to the BBC, it turns out that the Russian army's offensive on Kupiansk is being commanded by a former Ukrainian armed forces officer, Lieutenant General Serhiy Storozhenko, who betrayed his oath back in 2014. Even though he used to say that the oath was above all else.
And so
now Russian Shaheds will have to cover even less distance to cross the Ukrainian border. It is reported that Russia has built a new launch site for drones in the Bryansk region, 35 kilometers from the border with Ukraine.
And this is a launch site for Shaheds. It's not a place where they are stored. The number of Shaheds launched in mass attacks is increasing by an order of magnitude. That's why in the launch areas you need 10 times more of them, 10 times more. And
meanwhile, in Lithuania, a fragment of a Russian German drone was found. It is assumed that the drone fragment was washed ashore from the Baltic Sea.
Subscribe to our channel, like this video. It's easy for you and pleasant for us. YouTube's algorithms really like it and it helps promote the content. The topics we will be discussing over the next 20 minutes have already been announced in our segment. So let me introduce the guest who is joining our broadcast. This is Oleksandr Kovalenko, a military and political analyst from the Information Resistance Group. Oleksandr, glad to have you with us.
Good afternoon.
Oleksandr, now about the Kupiansk direction. What is happening?
Judging by the information available in open sources, the pipeline that the Russian occupiers used allowed them to penetrate to the north. Not exactly the north of Kupiansk. In fact, the pipeline's exit was located between the settlements in the triangle of Kondryshovka, Libovka, and Radkivka. And further south, along the R79 highway from Radkivka and Holubivka, primarily from Radkivka, they were infiltrating towards Kupiansk and entering the outskirts of the settlement. In fact, this pipeline has been flooded. At this point, the Russian occupation forces cannot fully use it. Let's put it this way, they can't use it at all. This could soon lead to a shortage of personnel for them, since previously they carried out their assault and sabotage operations and established positions in northern Kupiansk non-stop. In other words, they didn't really have a shortage of manpower, despite suffering very high losses. All thanks to the pipeline. Now, that won't be the case. They might use units that are closer to Dvorikhna, the Dvorikhna bridgehead, as reinforcements, since they will soon be facing this shortage of personnel. Nevertheless, their neutralization will be addressed and they will be systematically destroyed, specifically on the outskirts of Kupiansk. Nevertheless, there is another point. Of course, the outskirts of Kupiansk can be cleared by the Ukrainian defense forces, but the problem itself, namely the penetration triangle and Kondryshovka, Radkivka, Holubivka, will not be solved without neutralizing this triangle. Therefore, I think that in the near future, the Ukrainian defense forces will attempt to cut off and completely clear this area, specifically these settlements, and thereby create a security buffer for Kupiansk by holding this particular location.
Yes, just like that, the gas pipeline has unexpectedly turned into yet another water obstacle for the occupiers. Apparently, it's an insurmountable water barrier, unlike the Oskol River. Judging by the incoming information, the occupiers are actively trying to cross this water obstacle using rafts and boats. Are they succeeding, and how are the armed forces of Ukraine responding?
Unlike the pipe, which was almost entirely hidden beneath the surface of the ground and allowed them to successfully cross the Oskol River without any immediately visible signs of their presence. It certainly took a considerable amount of time. Yes, it was indeed several arduous days of crawling on their bellies through the terrain, but nevertheless, this painstaking effort ultimately produced the desired and crucial results. They managed to infiltrate the right bank unnoticed. However, the crossing of the Oskol River itself is accompanied firstly by artillery fire from the armed forces of Ukraine, the detection of the crossing site, and the use of FPV drones to destroy enemy personnel and equipment. Therefore, in most cases, this ends in losses for them. A water crossing of the Oskol results in greater losses than advancing through the pipe. And now they will return to this practice more intensively, especially since the 6th Combined Arms Army, which is operating in the Kupyansk direction, has received reinforcements from the 1st Tank Army with units from the 1st TA. And this gives them the opportunity to use the infantry component on a larger scale.
Alexander, I ask you to tell us more about the brigade commander who is currently leading the Russian army's offensive in the Kupiansk direction. It is known that he is a former Ukrainian military officer. What else is known about him?
In the end, he is truly a traitor, a clear traitor to Ukraine since the year 2014, and there is only one single word to accurately describe him. If he can be effectively eliminated, it would indeed be an excellent and highly desirable result, and perhaps a truly fitting end to his entire life's journey for him personally. Therefore, the elimination of this person, just like the many other traitors to Ukraine who have been eliminated since 2022, those who switched to the enemy's side and, among other things, leaked information they knew, his elimination is a priority.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Here's something recent. This information came in this morning about events that apparently unfolded last night. I'm talking now about a special operation carried out by Ukrainian special forces in the Kursk region, in the Kursk area. There, it seems, a Russian marine base suffered significant damage. What is known about the consequences of this attack?
A very large number of essential facilities were completely destroyed, including critical ammunition depots, extensive logistics and supply warehouses, and significant storage areas for vital fuel and lubricants, as well as various hangar-type structures and both openly visible and carefully concealed facilities, where valuable equipment, crucial ammunition, powerful weapons, and other important supplies were meticulously kept and stored. This was the main logistics hub in the Kursk region for the 810th Separate Marine Brigade, which is actively operating, including in the Sumy region in the border area, where they are trying to establish what they call a buffer zone. At least 20 high-precision strikes were carried out on this logistics hub, meaning that almost all of them hit their target. This was exactly what was shown in the video, after which there was a serious fire at the site. As for the number of enemy casualties, I haven't seen any open information yet, but the effectiveness of the strikes is quite impressive. The question, of course, is what these strikes were carried out with, what means of destruction were used.
You took the words right out of my mouth, okay?
But I think that in time we'll find out anyway, whether it was drones or some kind of missile weaponry. What exactly it was, we don't know, at least not yet. But the strike was carried out very effectively, and what's particularly noteworthy, with high precision.
And today more information came in, according to which the first batch of this weaponry, which the Americans are selling to Ukraine but is being paid for by all the members of the North Atlantic Alliance, has already been delivered to Ukraine. Naturally, neither the name nor the quantity is being disclosed at this stage. At least for now, it seems this information is classified. This is by no means the full volume that is supposed to be delivered to Ukraine under the Pearl program. But in general, some overall parameters were mentioned, not specifically for this batch, but for the entire program. And it is supposed to include missiles, including missiles for HIMARS and missiles for Patriot systems. To what extent, in your opinion, can this kind of practice actually help Ukraine? We have probably long forgotten the time when the American side provided weapons to Ukraine simply as a gesture of gratitude for defending against Russian aggression.
Yes, with 2 aid packages every month. There was such a time under Joseph Biden, but that's in the past. Now it's the reality of Donald Trump. And I'll say this, it's good that Donald Trump at least agreed to sell. That's already a positive, because let me remind you, last spring, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, approached Donald Trump with a proposal. Let's sell us weapons directly. We will buy from you with real money. Donald Trump refused. In July, there was a turning point for Donald Trump, apparently, or perhaps he was pressured by the arms monopolies, which had not had income from selling weapons to Ukraine for quite some time, since even during Joseph Biden's period, funds were still being allocated from the budget. America was buying weapons from itself, updating its own warehouses and storage centers, transferring old weapons to Ukraine, and replenishing its own stock with new ones using its own money. That was the process. Nevertheless, the monopolies had orders, they had contracts. Before Joseph Biden, things were going quite well for them. They were seeing growth in production and so on. During the first 6 months of Donald Trump's presidency, this did not happen at all. And that's why the monopolies, whose main electorate is in the southern states, where the US military-industrial complex is concentrated, this is Donald Trump's core electorate, began to put pressure on him. We cast our votes for you, we trusted you. So what now? We're incurring losses. We're not making the kind of profits we had under Joseph Biden. In fact, that's what pushed Donald Trump. I think it was one of the factors that motivated him to start selling weapons through Europe. Still selling them nonetheless. And in this way, to support Ukraine.
Are we now witnessing a new arms race? Right now, I mean, for example, the statement by the president of Poland, Nawrocki, about the possible deployment of French nuclear weapons on Polish territory. I'm also talking about Denmark's initiative to purchase missiles and drones capable of striking targets inside the Russian Federation, and about the Russian threat. Well, it's clear what provoked this, but can we already call this a full-fledged arms race?
Yes, of course, and it didn't start today or yesterday or a month ago. It began even before 2022, when the hybrid aggression against Ukraine started. It's just that the arms race from 2014 to 2022 took place under conditions where various countries were building up their capabilities, their military technical components, let's say at a minimal level, based on the old form of warfare, the old rules of war, the old concepts of war. But it was the full-scale invasion in 2022 that fundamentally stimulated, or I would even say accelerated, certain technical solutions that had not even been considered before by the world's leading countries and top military equipment manufacturers. In this regard, yes, we are now witnessing a high-tech and highly technical breakthrough in the field of armaments, once again stimulated by the war in Ukraine. And in a number of areas, Ukraine is even at the forefront and setting the pace for the development of military technical cooperation.
Alexander, thank you very much. Thank you for your analysis and thank you for the answers you provided. I think more questions will come up before our next meeting, so I'm already looking forward to it. Alexander Kovalenko, military political observer of the Information Resistance Group, joined our broadcast. Thank you. Thank you.